What if the secret to living past 100 isn't a miracle drug, but simply having a reason to wake up every morning? Welcome back to the show. I'm so glad you're here, and I mean that literally. I'm glad you are here, existing, breathing, and listening. Because today, we are going to talk about the very reason why you are here. I want to start by asking you a question that might feel a little heavy for a Tuesday, or a Friday, or whenever you're tuning in. It's a question that has haunted philosophers, poets, and insomniacs for thousands of years. It's simply this: what is your reason for getting out of bed in the morning? And I don't mean, because I have to pee. And I don't mean, because if I don't, I'll get fired. I mean, what is the engine driving your existence? Why do some people seem to possess an internal compass that points true north, guiding them through life with energy and clarity? While others, maybe you, maybe me at times, feel like we're just drifting, caught in the current, waiting for the weekend? Today, we are doing a deep dive into a concept that might just be the answer to that question. We're exploring the Japanese concept of Ikigai. To guide us, we're looking at the seminal work by Hector Garcia and Francesc Miralles, Ikigai, the Japanese secret to a long and happy life. This isn't just a self-help book, it's an anthropological treasure map. It's a journey that takes us from the high-tech streets of Tokyo to a tiny, rural village in Okinawa, and then deep into the biology of our own cells and the psychology of our minds. So let's start with the word itself. Ikigai. It roughly translates to the reason for being, or more poetically, the happiness of always being busy. But don't let the word busy fool you. We aren't talking about the frantic, cortisol-spiked busyness of a modern office. We are talking about a state of being where your passion, your mission, your vocation, and your profession all overlap. It is the intersection where what you love meets what you are good at, which meets what the world needs, and finally, what you can be paid for. But here is where the story really begins. The authors, Garcia and Miralles, didn't just sit in a library to write this. They went to the source. They traveled to a place called Ogimi, a rural village on the north end of Okinawa, Japan. Now, in longevity circles, Ogimi is legendary. It's known as the Village of Longevity. It boasts the highest concentration of centenarians, people over the age of 100, in the world. We're talking about a ratio of about 25 centenarians for every 100,000 people. That is staggering. When the authors arrived, they expected to find magic potions or perhaps some secret genetic mutation. But what they found was a philosophy. They found Ikigai. And the first clue to understanding this philosophy is linguistic, and it is absolutely fascinating. Here is the thing: in the Japanese language, or at least in the cultural context of Okinawa, there is no word for retirement. Think about that. Let it sink in. In the West, our entire life trajectory is built around the concept of retirement. We work hard, we grind, we suffer through the daily grind for 40 years, all for the promise that one day, we can stop. We can retire. We can withdraw from society and sit on a porch. But in Okinawa, the very concept of leaving the workforce forever doesn't exist. Why does this matter? Because words create worlds. If your language doesn't have a word for stopping, you don't stop. You keep doing what you love for as long as your health allows. The author spoke to Dan Buettner, the National Geographic reporter famous for identifying the blue zones, those pockets of the world where people live the longest, and he confirmed this. In these cultures, purpose doesn't have an expiration date. You don't turn 65 and hand in your badge of utility. You transition, sure, but you never stop contributing. So, if they aren't retiring, what are they doing? They are living by a set of principles that seem almost painfully simple, yet are scientifically profound. Let's break down the lifestyle of these blue zones, places like Okinawa, Sardinia in Italy, Loma Linda in California, the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica, and Icaria in Greece. They found a few common denominators. A healthy diet, sure. Regular, low-intensity exercise, not running marathons, but just moving. Strong social ties. But the biggest factor? A clear purpose. An Ikigai. Let's talk about the food for a second. Because there is a specific phrase the Okinawans use that I think could revolutionize Western health if we actually applied it. It's called Hara Hachi Bu. Hara Hachi Bu is a Confucian teaching that instructs people to eat until they are 80% full. Now, why 80%? Why not until you're full? Well, physiologically, it takes about 20 minutes for your stomach to send the signal to your brain that you've had enough. If you eat until you feel 100% full, you've actually overeaten. You've likely hit 110 or 120% capacity. The authors explain the biology here, and it's compelling. Digestion is an incredibly energy-expensive process for the body. When you overeat, your body has to work overtime to break that food down. This causes cellular oxidation. Essentially, you are rusting your cells from the inside out. By stopping at 80%, you minimize that oxidative stress. You give your body fuel, but you don't bog down the engine. Visually, this looks like the traditional Japanese meal. If you've ever had a kaiseki meal, you know what I'm talking about. It's not one giant plate of pasta. It's 5 or 6 tiny plates. A bit of tofu, some vegetables, a little rice, some miso soup. The authors point out that this presentation tricks the brain. It looks like a lot of food because of the variety and the number of plates, but the caloric density is low. We're talking 1,800 calories a day versus the American average of nearly 3,000. It's portion control disguised as abundance. But you can't survive on tofu alone. You need a tribe. And this brings us to one of my favorite concepts from the book, the Moai. A Moai is an informal social group, a safety net. In Okinawa, these groups start when children are young, and they stick together for life. It's not just a book club. It's a financial and emotional support system. Members contribute a set amount of money each month to the group. If someone is in trouble, maybe a bad harvest, or a medical bill, or a family emergency, the Moai steps in and covers it. Imagine the reduction in cortisol, the stress hormone, just knowing that you have a Moai. Knowing that you literally cannot fall because your neighbors won't let you. In the West, we talk about networking. In Okinawa, they talk about brotherhood. There's a local saying, Ikariba chode, which means, treat everyone you meet like a brother, even if you've never met them before. This social connectivity is a massive pillar of longevity. Isolation is a killer, connection is the cure. Now, let's pivot from the social to the cerebral. We need to talk about the mind-body connection, specifically regarding aging. There's an old Roman proverb, mens sana in corpore sano, a sound mind in a sound body. The authors argue that this is a two-way street. We know that if you don't use your muscles, they atrophy. They waste away. Well, the brain is no different. The authors introduce us to the concept of neuroplasticity. For a long time, science believed the brain was static after childhood. We now know that's false. The brain is plastic, it can mold and change. But, and this is a big but, it only changes if you challenge it. Neuroscientist Shlomo Bresnitz is cited in the book, and he argues that the brain loves routine because routine is efficient. It's low energy. It's autopilot. But autopilot is where aging accelerates. When you do the same thing every day, your brain stops making new connections. To stay young, you have to introduce chaos. You have to learn a new language, take a new route to work, interact with people you disagree with. This cognitive stretching keeps the neurons firing and the mind youthful. So, we have the social structure, the diet, and the cognitive habits. But we need to go deeper into the biology of why we age, and specifically, the role of stress. This is where the book takes a turn into the hard science of the 21st century, and it's terrifyingly eye-opening. The authors discuss something called longevity escape velocity. It's a futuristic idea that for every year you survive, science will advance enough to add more than a year to your life expectancy, theoretically leading to immortality. But we aren't there yet. Right now, we are fighting a battle against our own biology, and the biggest enemy is stress. There was a study done at Heidelberg University Hospital that the book details. They took a young, aspiring doctor and put him in a high-pressure job interview. They made him solve complex math problems while they stared at him, judging him. Then they took his blood. The results were shocking. His body had released antibodies. Usually, antibodies are released to fight a virus or bacteria. But there was no virus. There was just stress. His body was reacting to a social threat as if it were a biological pathogen. And here's the kicker: those proteins, having nothing to attack, started attacking healthy cells. Stress literally causes the body to eat itself. This leads us to the telomeres. If you've listened to podcasts on longevity before, you've heard of these. Telomeres are the little protective caps at the end of your chromosomes, like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, the telomere gets a little shorter. When the telomere is gone, the cell dies or becomes senescent, a zombie cell, that causes inflammation. The book cites a study from the University of California showing that high stress directly correlates to shorter telomeres. If you are chronically stressed, you are biologically older than your chronological age. And this brings us to the evolutionary mismatch. This is a concept I love exploring. Our bodies are designed for the Paleolithic era. In the wild, stress was acute. A tiger jumps out. You run. You survive. The stress is gone. Your cortisol drops. You relax. But today, the tiger is an email. The tiger is a mortgage notification. The tiger is a vibrating phone in your pocket. These threats are not lethal, but they are constant. We are living in a state of chronic, low-level arousal. We are always on. Our adrenal glands are pumping out cortisol to mobilize glucose for a fight that never happens. We don't run from the tiger, we sit in an office chair. So that glucose and cortisol just sit in our blood, causing inflammation, high blood pressure, and anxiety. The authors make a point that we are suffering from sitting disease. A sedentary lifestyle is the twin brother of chronic stress. It shortens telomeres just as fast. But the solution isn't necessarily to become a CrossFit athlete. The Okinawans don't go to the gym. They garden. They walk. They sit on the floor, which means they have to get up from the floor dozens of times a day. It's about constant, low-level movement. They also sleep. The book takes a detour into the world of melatonin. Melatonin isn't just a sleep hormone, it's a powerful antioxidant. It cleans up the free radicals in your body while you dream. But we kill our melatonin production with blue light and caffeine. The centenarians of Ogimi follow the sun. They sleep when it's dark, wake when it's light. It sounds primitive, but biologically it's sophisticated. But let's pause. We've talked about the body, diet, stress, sleep, movement. But Ikigai is fundamentally about the mind and the spirit. You can have the healthiest body in the world, but if you don't have a reason to wake up, you will wither. This is where the authors introduce us to Viktor Frankl and the concept of logotherapy. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, is one of the most important books ever written. Frankl developed logotherapy, which differs radically from Freud's psychoanalysis. Freud was all about the past, digging into childhood traumas. Frankl was about the future. He focused on meaning. Frankl had a question he would ask his patients, and it's a question that stops you in your tracks. He would ask, "Why do you not commit suicide?" It sounds harsh. It sounds cruel. But Frankl knew that the answer to that question contained the spark of life. I don't kill myself because I love my children. Because I have a book I want to write. Because I want to see the ocean one more time. That answer? That is your Ikigai. Frankl observed that modern society suffers from what he called the existential vacuum. We have more freedom and more comfort than any humans in history, yet we feel empty. He coined the term Sunday neurosis. You know that feeling? The Sunday blues. It's that anxiety that creeps in when the busy week stops, the distractions fade, and you are left alone with the void of your own existence. Frankl argued that we tried to fill this void with pleasure, with money, with power. But it doesn't work. The only thing that fills the void is meaning. The book shares incredible case studies from Frankl's practice. There was an American diplomat who spent years in traditional therapy trying to resolve his daddy issues, because he hated his job. Frankl looked at him and realized the guy didn't have a psychological complex. He just hated his career. He needed a new purpose, not a new childhood. He changed jobs, and the neurosis vanished. Then there was the mother who wanted to end her life and the life of her disabled son. Frankl didn't medicate her. He asked her to imagine herself at 80 years old, looking back on her life. In that hypothetical future, she saw that by sacrificing for her son, she had lived a life of honor and love. She found meaning in her suffering. And that meaning gave her the strength to go on. This is the crux of it. Longevity isn't just about Hara Hachi Bu and eating vegetables. It's about existential tension. You need a gap between where you are and where you want to be. You need a goal. You need a mission. That tension pulls you forward into the future. It keeps you alive. So, how do we find this meaning? How do we access this Ikigai in our daily lives? We can't all be diplomats or authors. This brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the state of flow. The authors pivot to the work of psychologist Moai Csikszentmihalyi. If you haven't heard of flow, you've certainly felt it. The book starts this section with a reflection on time. Have you ever noticed how time is relative? Einstein joked that an hour with a pretty girl feels like a minute, but a minute on a hot stove feels like an hour. When we are doing something we love, time evaporates. We forget to eat. We forget our ego. We forget our problems. That is flow. Flow is the state of optimal experience. It is total immersion. And the authors argue that the happiest people, the ones with the strongest Ikigai, are the ones who spend the most time in flow. Now, here is the critical distinction: flow is not the same as pleasure. Eating a chocolate bar is pleasure. Watching Netflix is pleasure. But those are passive. You don't enter flow while watching TV. You enter flow when you are challenged. Flow happens when the difficulty of a task perfectly matches your skill level. If the task is too easy, you get bored. If it's too hard, you get anxious. But right in the middle? That's the sweet spot. That's the channel. The book outlines 7 conditions to achieve this state. We need clear goals. We need immediate feedback. We need to feel control. But most importantly, we need to focus on the process, not the outcome. Think about the artists, the engineers, the chess players. They aren't thinking about the trophy while they play. They are lost in the move. They are lost in the brushstroke. The authors suggest that to live a long, happy life, we need to transform our daily rituals into opportunities for flow. Even washing the dishes can be a flow state if you focus entirely on the sensation of the water, the texture of the plate, the rhythm of the movement. This connects back to the Japanese concept of takumi, the artisan spirit. In Japan, you see workers cleaning the Shinkansen bullet train with the focus of a brain surgeon. They take pride in the act itself. They find Ikigai in the mundane. This is why the Okinawans don't retire. Why would you retire from flow? Why would you retire from a state of being where you feel most alive, most capable, and most connected to the world? So, let's bring this all together. What is the secret of the Japanese centenarians? It's not one thing. It's a symphony of lifestyle choices. It's the biological discipline of Hara Hachi Bu, stopping before you're full to save yourselves from stress. It's the social safety net of the Moai, knowing you are never alone. It's the movement, the constant, gentle activity that keeps the telomeres long. It's the resilience of Viktor Frankl, finding meaning even in suffering. And it's the psychology of flow, turning every moment, even the simple ones, into an optimal experience. Ikigai isn't a destination. You don't find it and then put it on a shelf. It's a verb. It's an action. It's the reason you get up, yes, but it's also how you move through the day. As we wrap up, I want you to think about your own life. Where is your flow? Who is your Moai? What is the tension pulling you toward the future? You don't have to move to Okinawa to find these answers. You just have to look a little closer at how you're living right now. Remember, there is no word for retirement in the life of a person who loves what they do. So, find what you love. Do it until you're 100. And eat a little less than you think you need. Thank you for listening. Go find your reason. I'll see you next time.